Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. We're going to go ahead and jump back into the weathering videos that we've been working on. And I was supposed to get a video up a few days ago, and I've got sidetracked and got involved in other things when I got home from work. So I apologize for that, but we're getting back to it now. I'll show you the next step that we're going to do in the weathering process of the Type 16 that we're working on. And one of the things that I did get occupied with is I was working on the top, and actually I ordered in the aluminum barrel kit and got that all put on. So I'm hoping probably either tonight or by about midday tomorrow to have this thing up to the point where it's going to be ready for final paint. So just to kind of recap what we've done so far, as you know, in the first video that I showed you guys, we did the dotting technique with the brush and the putty. And what that did was create some kind of, ups and downs and valleys and, the things like that. And it's making it look like dried mud and dirt and, just various stuff stuck to the underside of this vehicle. And then after that, we went in and we did the brown wash on this that I mixed up. And like I say, you can use any color you want to on that. Whatever shade that you want the dirt or the mud to be, that's what shade you go with. There's no, when it comes to colors on a lot of things, unless you're trying to, replicate a certain type of dirt or a certain type of mud, there's, you have a lot of freedom in what colors you can use. So I've been to the shows where a lot of guys say, oh, that's the wrong color dirt on this, or that's the wrong color for this. And it's like, okay, whatever, But, when you're doing this technique and you're not in competition, have fun with it. It's something, new to learn, to make your models look realistic, to make them look dirtier. Just have fun with it and, enjoy it. So let me see if I can hold this up here. And we'll get, hopefully the camera will zoom in on this and we can get a good shot of the texture. There you can see up underneath the wheel wells right there, the texture that we created. And like I say, all that's doing is just simulating stuff that's stuck to the underside of this vehicle. And you can also see it. We got it a little bit heavier on this side here, up in that wheel well. You can see it, around the suspension components and things like that. We've built it up pretty heavy on one side, not as heavy on the other side. So that's where we're at with that point of the weathering process. And I'm over here trying to knock parts off of it right now. I got a little stand here on the back of it. I got to fix that up. Hang on a second. Let me do a little bit of repair here before we get into the weathering part of the video, because my clumsy ass just hit one of the little walkways or steps or whatever you want to call those things and bent it over. So I'm going to straighten that back out here real quick. There we go. Good as new. But that's what you want it to look like, up to the, when we mixed up the brown wash and did that on it and we spread that over the whole thing. After I done that, I went ahead and did a flat coat of clear to seal all that down. Now we're going to move on to the next point. Now I've already done some of this, but I just wanted to do the video to show you guys the next step that I do in the weathering. And what we're going to be using is just the Model Master Chrome Silver. Nothing special. This is the enamel based stuff. And I just shake this up in the bottle. And I think I've showed this technique a few times before, but we're going to show it again here on a weathered vehicle. And you'll have some material in the cap, the paint in the cap. You want to use that. So you set that to the side there. And the next thing you want to use is a wide flat brush, or a wider flat brush. You don't want to be too wide with this because you can't really control it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to dip the end of the bristles into that paint that's in the cap. And once you load the brush to about that point there, you just want to take your cloth that you have down, and you can leave one laying down here on the workbench, or you can actually, take a cloth like this and hold it and do it the same way. You can do it like this, For the newer guys out there that's never done this technique before, using a white cloth is a very good thing to practice and learn with until you get the hang of it. Because on a white cloth, you can see how much is still left in the brush, and you want to get the majority of it out of the brush, but you want a little bit transfer into the cloth. So what we're going to do with that little bit of paint that's left in that brush is we're just going to come on the high points of the model, and we're just going to lightly touch the edges of things like the control arms, the suspension mounts, the bolts, just various things underneath of the chassis. And what we're simulating on this is not only are we trying to make this look like a piece of metal, but we're also simulating as this vehicle would have run through, you know, brush and tall grass and things like that. It will wear away the paint that's on these high parts. Any bolts or anything that's underneath of here, once a vehicle's got some hours on it, it will wear that paint away from underneath of it if you're in that type of environment. So just a light touch on all your edges, you know, go around and, you know, anything that's sticking up and it's like a raised detail or whatever, just lightly run the brush across it. It transfers a little bit of that silver paint to the model, and it will make it look like the paint is chipped off the edges or wore off the edges of your, you know, components underneath of the model. So like I say, I've already went around this and did it once, so I'm not going to put too much more on it because I don't want to get it too heavy. But this is a very good technique. It's very rewarding in the end. Takes a little bit of practice. It's not hard. You just have to be very careful on how much paint you take off of the brush and make sure you're not putting too much back down on the model. But if you do put too much down on the model, you can always take a little bit of your base color that you sprayed the bottom with here and just kind of go in with the airbrush and just touch up that area and get it back to, you know, the base color, and then you can go back and dry brush it again. So no big deal on that. And that's all there is to it. That was the next step on the list that we do. Just going around doing a little bit of dry brushing, and that really helps pop out the details of everything. And you can do a little, you can do a lot. I would suggest not to overdo it. You want this to be a very subtle technique. And the other thing that you want to remember too, if you want to get very particular on things, is if this vehicle is going forward, running over stuff, some of your heavier dry brushing needs to be to the front side. So you wouldn't want a whole lot off of this trailing edge, but you'd want more on the front side of, say, like this plate right here that's going to catch the majority of the tall grass and brush and things like that. And a lot of times this front section right here will pretty much knock a lot of that high stuff down, so it doesn't really get to a lot of the components back here. But if the vehicle goes forward the majority of its life, and that's what you're replicating, make sure that you're getting the very front edges of this stuff a little bit heavier than you do on these back edges here. So just a little tip there on that I've learned from the armor guys over the years. So other than that, that's about all we got for this step. Like I say, nothing hard about it at all. When you get done with that, let everything dry, and then you can go back over this with a little bit of the TS80, the flat clear that we use from Tamiya in the can. Just give it a mist coat across there that seals this down, and we'll be ready for the next step. So stay tuned. We got another video coming up on the next thing that we're going to do to the underneath. Now, what we just did here is not really part of the mud weathering technique that I have this series of videos titled as, but it's one of the steps that I wanted to go ahead and get out of the way before we go any further with more colors on here. So, like I say, stay tuned. We got more coming up. And if you got any questions or concerns, leave me a comment on the video. Be more than glad to help you out. And as always, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.